thought it was Grimace that made you guys get hot. I don't understand why we're giving Alvarez so much credit.
Yeah, I mean, clearly McDonald's place mascot has been hitting all the homers and throwing all the strikes and making all the plays.
Adam Ottavino on the show right now to talk about the Subway Series. Adam, great to have you back on the show, and congrats on the big win for the Mets in Game 1 of this series yesterday. How was it? How fun was it? I know there were a lot of chapters to the story here that we'll get into, but, you're a New York City guy. How was this for you?
It was fun, Mets win. That's all that matters, and we had a great time last night. Crowd was electric. It's been good every time I've been a part of this, but last night was definitely another good chapter in it.
Can I ask you first about the Yankee side, because I know you know Cole well too. What did you see from him, and did you hear his post-game comments about how he was firing close to upper 90s but didn't have the control in the first, so he dialed it back and your side took advantage?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely noticed it in the second inning, looking at the iPad, that his velo dropped a little bit there. I haven't talked to Gerrit yet, but I was worried in the moment. I was like, man, maybe he's hurt, but it also made sense that he was dialing it back a little bit. He went back up to 96 pretty quick after that. But it was just one of those nights. He didn't have his best stuff, and we've been swinging it really well, so it was a tough matchup.
And then your boy Mark Vientos with not one but two big bombs. I also got to read a little bit about him. I didn't realize he grew up a huge David Wright fan, so this must have been special for him too. Now, he went through some ups and downs. I know if it was up to him, he would have been on the team right from the jump there, but he's been huge for you guys. Actually, who was it last night on the broadcast? Keith Hernandez called him Giancarlo Stanton Light because he's strong as hell. So what do you have for us on Vientos and what you saw from him yesterday?
I mean, he can really swing it. He hits the ball as hard as anyone. So the Stanton comparison makes a little bit of sense. But I'm just really proud of the guy. He was disappointed coming out of spring, probably rightfully so. But, he just kept his head down, kept working. And, the cream always rises to the top. And I think he's proven that right now.
Hey, Otto, big fan, longtime fan, long time no talk. I got a question about Alvarez. I think it's Francisco Alvarez, the catcher. I think it's no surprise to anybody that the recent success kind of coincides with him coming off the IL and becoming an everyday part of this team. I remember when I first met him being really impressed with his ability to call a game and receive, and he's only gotten better since then. What has impressed you so much? What's it like having him back there? Does it feel like there's a young guy back there? Does it feel like there's been a veteran that's been back there for a decade?
Hey, what's up, teammate? It's definitely a weird thing when you're trusting such a young guy with so much responsibility back there. But as the days go by, he's earned that trust and then some. He's the type of guy that is just really good at getting himself better, and he learns from everything every day. He's an absolute sponge. It's just really impressive to see his feel for the game. I don't know if that's something you can teach or not, but he definitely has it. He doesn't just rely on the analytics only. He's in tune with that stuff, but he's also feeling the game out, and he knows the strength of his pitchers. And I mean, his pitch calling is top notch. We've definitely got on a nice run with him behind the plate. And just his emotional boost that he provides to the team too, his energy and his enthusiasm, it's definitely infectious. So I'm a huge fan of his, and it's really cool to see him at this stage of his career already be so good.
A couple follow-ups on Alvarez. One, can you describe more specifics on his game calling and if, it stands out for a young catcher? It does seem like he's pretty aggressive calling pitches inside in a good way. And then number two, is this a thing? Is this normal? I saw this last night, and I think one of the broadcasters mentioned that they hadn't seen it, or maybe had seen it only once. Peterson was getting close to the shot clock expiring, the pitch clock. And Alvarez here, I'll put my finger in where he's going like this. He's paying attention to the clock, and he hurries him up. I've seen him do some of the timeouts to save his pitchers, but I hadn't seen this before. And then Peterson did kind of rush himself to get the pitch going. So did you notice that?
I didn't notice that. In the past, he's kind of called time and run out there if we're about to get a violation in a big spot. So he's definitely has a good feel for the clock and the cadence of all of that. In terms of the pitch calling, for me, I think it's important to know the game plan and to know the hitters and to know the script. But at the same time, be able to watch what's happening in front of you, because a lot of that analytics is kind of like for a sample size of infinity. But if you're paying attention enough in the moment, you can get advantages, for what's necessary right now. And I played with a lot of catchers that didn't have that type of feel. And then the ones that do, it definitely stands out because, they're just kind of in the moment, exactly where they need to be. They're very present, and that's what he does. And I think that there's small edges to be gained with that type of ability.
Okay, we're giving Alvarez all the credit for this run. I thought it was Grimace that made you guys get hot. I don't understand why we're giving Alvarez so much credit.
Yeah, I mean, clearly a McDonald's place mascot has been hitting all the homers and throwing all the strikes and making all the plays.
Hey, whatever it takes, as you know, whatever it takes in baseball to get you hot, you'll do whatever it takes. So listen, if you need Grimace to throw out the first pitch, you have Grimace.
Yeah, I mean, we don't care. We don't care. We'll take it. The fans are running with it. There was some Grimace costumes in the stands last night. Whatever it takes to galvanize the fan base, I mean, we'll definitely take it.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so one of your fellow bullpen guys just got his 10-game suspension. What did he say to you guys, and what were your thoughts when you saw him go out there? And then obviously you've seen the picture of his hand. If it was just rosin, why can't we have a test that says, hey, it's just rosin?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some frustration across the league with just that everything's umpire's discretion in this regard, and it's kind of hard to know where the line is. And even if you have a certain practice with getting sweaty and grabbing the rosin bag or grabbing dirt or whatever you're doing, depending on the weather, your hand might have a different level of tack. I think in the Cubs bullpen, you're inside like a controlled environment in there because it's inside and air conditioned. And then all of a sudden you run out and it's like super humid outside. So I don't really know the specifics of what he was doing that day, but I think it basically caught him by surprise. He was pretty surprised that he got ejected. He said he really hadn't done anything different than he had been doing. And he's our teammate, so we're always going to support him no matter what. But it's just a scary situation when you see that your closer's about to be ejected from the game and nobody's ready to go in there. So we were kind of scrambling a little bit out there. And luckily the boys that did go in did a good job.
Are there any situations where you guys are getting ready in the pen and you're like, oh crap, like you kind of like feel in your hand, you're like, uh-oh, like the sweat and everything mixing together, this is bad, and start like wiping it off? Or is it something that, whatever, we'll see what happens?
Good question. I've done that before. I've been warming up and I've noticed that my hands are a little black, or a little bit from the, the rosin, and also the dirt on the ball and stuff like that, the mud on the ball, and just try to pick it off a little bit with my fingers. But then I like feel it with my left hand and I'm like, well, it's not sticky. And I mean, overall they're trying to go off stickiness, I think, not really like color and stuff like that. So as long as you feel like you're not tacky, you're probably good to go. But I don't know. I think ever since the crackdown started, I've been more on the paranoid side than most guys probably. Like I just want to get out there and do my thing and try not to worry about it too much.
Adam, do you feel like some pitchers need more education on what the rules are right now, even if they disagree with them? Even if you're using substances that are legal, your hands can still get too sticky. So that's number one, because I feel like sometimes, you'll get an answer like, hey, I was just using what I normally use, but that's not necessarily okay within the rules. Number two, kind of a follow-up towards this is, okay, Edwin Diaz hadn't pitched yet. And I have seen situations where a pitcher comes out there and they go, hey, just wash your hands, it's too sticky, right? He's not even in the midst of his inning yet. The fact that that is, a rule for some and not for others, like the human side, the human element part there bothers me. Like, let's just make a decision. Can he go wash his hands? Because other pitchers have been able to do that. Do you feel like that part's messed up?
I think I tend to agree with you a little bit there. I mean, it does seem like there's been a double standard at times where guys have been able to go, clean it up or get it to an acceptable place for the umpires. But I mean, we've had 3 guys suspended in the last 2 years, and it's pretty detrimental to the team when that happens. So I would have loved for him to be given that opportunity. He wasn't, so we just have to roll with it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the education, I mean, because we had the 2 guys suspended last year, I mean, the club has done a great job of really driving that home and making sure that if anything, you're on the safe side. It's just unfortunate what happened. We didn't see it coming. And, hopefully we can just move forward from it. But it was definitely a crappy situation.
Otto, what do you think about the suspension as it stands now, being 10 games still, being an immediate ejection? I understood the way I felt about it is I understood at the time when right they're trying to change something in the middle of the season. You really want to drive that home, so you got to make it real scary. But keeping that, do you think that's probably a little bit overkill now? I mean, obviously you're on a team now that's been affected by it several times, but 10 games seems egregious to me. I'm wondering what you think.
Well, I mean, I think that the penalty is what it is got to be pretty stiff to really stop it. When the crackdown happened, you saw spin rates drop across the league, and then you've seen some creep back up across the league. So it's one of those things where they don't want it just to go back to the way it was before. It was definitely unfair for the hitters, and I think therefore you need to have some sort of stiff punishment. This one's a little weird because it's like a paid suspension, so like individually, it's maybe not as painful as some other things could be, but from a team perspective, it's pretty tough. So you have to live a little bit with that feeling of letting the boys down. And I know for me, that would haunt me pretty good.
We got a new little partnership running with Manscaped. You know how scary it can get when you're going for that close shave below the belt. So they've got you hooked up for those sensitive areas. Their newest package is the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, including the star of the show, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. The 5th generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top. Then you've got the new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires, and also has the dual LED spotlights to provide contrast on multiple skin tones, 3 length setting combs, and perhaps best of all, it is waterproof. Beach, lake, shower, whatever. The razor will get the job done. And they threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 5.0. The one we're talking about has boxers. It has a shed travel bag and a new buff bundle, which includes their signature silicone scrubber and their body wash. So no loofah action. Okay. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. It's 20% off plus free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use promo code FOUL20, FOUL20. It's summertime and the trimming is easy. You had the Nats and Padres suddenly creating a rivalry, which is cool and fun. I'm just curious for your thoughts about the origin of the story. So Jerkson Profar hits a walk-off home run or a walk-off hit, whatever, on Monday or homer, and they didn't like the way that, he kind of looked towards the dugout because they intentionally walked in the garage to get to him. So where do you think is the line, and what ticks off a team enough for then the next day them to try and send a message to him? You know what I'm saying? Like, it seemed as if they felt like him looking towards the dugout was their line, and so they were pissed and they carried that into Tuesday's game. Curious what you've seen, and do you care about that stuff anymore with the way that the game has changed?
I mean, for me, I've always tried to, for the most part, to direct my emotion towards my own team and not towards the other team as much as I can. I just think that's sportsmanship, ultimately. But it's such an emotional game, and sometimes a guy does feel disrespected, and so he wants to rub it in their face a little bit. It's human nature. Like, I get it. In terms of the retaliation, I guess the Nationals must have felt pretty strongly that they were upset with Profar's, home run celebration or whatever on the walk-off. I don't know the specifics of that or if there's even more to that, but I don't know. It's such an emotional game. There's testosterone flying around. It's bound to happen at some point between two teams. It was just kind of interesting how it went down there in the first inning yesterday.
You feel like it's okay to throw it, guys? We talk about this all the time, and you're a guy that comes in. You're not coming in mop-up situations. You're coming in close situations. Do you feel like it's okay to throw at guys? Because we talk about, AJ doesn't feel like it, but he's like, hey, I'll take a free base at any point.
Well, I've never thrown at a guy on purpose because, like you said, most of the time I can't afford that base runner. There has been times where I felt like we needed to send a message to the other team. I don't want to hurt anybody, but there are times where that's kind of the way it's been done in the past. You're trying to send a message to the other team, like in a kind of a mature way, hit them somewhere where it doesn't hurt, and you kind of just move forward. But I've never been in that spot, so I've never had to deal with that emotion, that anxiety of having to execute that plan. So I'm maybe not the best guy to ask, but in general, I don't love hitting guys. I mean, I feel like, especially as a pitcher, we don't have to go up there and hit anymore, so they can't kind of come at us, it's like a free shot, and then you're just kind of opening up your teammates for potential injury, and I don't like that part of it.
Yeah, and you can't hit somebody with a slider, so what's the point of you hitting somebody, right?
It's not like my fastball's really going to hurt
It's
anybody
slow.
at this point either. So
It's slow. That's all. It's really slow. I mean, you only hit like 95, so I guess that doesn't hurt anybody. So, hey, I want to ask you about last night's dinger by Judgy. You guys in the bullpen, take us through the emotion, not necessarily the home run, but like leading up to that, where you guys are winning 9-1. Do you sit there in the bullpen and like some guys kind of check out? Reed Garrett's maybe your de facto, not closer, but like meat of the order guy right now with Edwin down. Do you guys kind of check out and then have to recheck back in, or how does that go out there?
Well, I don't think you ever fully check out. You can be like partially checked out, like you're not locked in, the adrenaline's not pumping yet. But in a lot of ways, as a reliever, that kind of works to your benefit. You kind of want that adrenaline to hit, and then for you to be able to like warm up and go right in the game. Sometimes that's kind of the best spike you can get, rather than kind of like trying to hold that adrenaline feeling the whole game. Like you can't do it. So sometimes it's better for it to kind of come on suddenly. But for me, I wasn't even in the bullpen last night. Unfortunately, I started off that inning and faced 3 guys and didn't do my job. So I was out of there, and I was watching it from the dugout, just hoping we could get some outs and keep them at bay. But Aaron's a strong guy. So even though he hit that ball, I think like 45 degrees or something, it still went out.
Otto, we had a thing with Danny Colon the other day about inherited runners. What's your stance on inherited runners and how important of a stat is? Because Kratz and I both said, you know what, we think it's a huge stat for relievers because, there's relievers that have good ERAs and they give up everyone. They torch everyone else's runs, and then as soon as their runner gets on third, they're like, oh, here's my nasty slider. Oh, here's my good split. So what's your thoughts on that as a bullpen guy?
For me, it's huge. For me, like David Robertson is a great example of maybe the best fireman the game's had the last 10 years. I mean, he's been in other roles, but he's the best guy at coming in and putting out fires. And I've always taken pride in that role when I'm given that opportunity. Nothing feels better than saving runs for your teammates and kind of coming in and saving the day. I do think the stat itself is a little weird because all the situations are different. Bases loaded, no outs is a different thing than man on second, 2 outs. You should be able to get that last out without that man scoring from second. But you come in bases loaded, no outs. Keeping them all off the board maybe is a little bit high of an expectation there. But I do think that's a huge part of the game, especially for the bullpen guys. And you got to take pride in that for sure.
I have to second that for you. The little bit that we played together, the little bit that I caught you, your stuff did not. I always felt like your stuff actually ticked up a little bit when there was other guys, runners on base. And it really stuck out to me. I'm glad AJ asked that question because it was almost like, hey, like where was it? Where was that same pitch like last inning when nobody was like somebody else's runs are out there? It almost like you even when we talked on the mound, it almost seemed like you were more focused. Is that true, or is it just is a bad read by me?
I think it's a good read. It's unfortunate that it's a good read because I'd like to be better with nobody on. But sometimes with nobody on, you're kind of like you get into this like weird mode where you're aggressive but not 100% aggressive. You're kind of easing your way in with those first 2 pitches. But when I come in a big spot, I've got no choice but to go into kill mode right away and to be super duper aggressive. And a lot of times that brings the best out of me. So yeah, I do think your intuition's right. I definitely get a little more, locked in for those moments. And I'm trying to do a better job of doing that all the time. But, it's an emotional game for sure.
Kill mode and super duper usually don't go together. So that was an interesting way to phrase it. Okay, so we talked about Grimace. We talked about Francisco Alvarez, but Francisco Lindor had a team meeting. And that's really when you guys – I mean, I know it coincides with Grimace and it coincides with Alvarez coming back. But was that the thing that got you guys going? And I mean, you don't have to divulge what was said, but did you say something? Did the whole team say something? Or was this just Lindor saying, let's freaking go, boys?
Yeah, I mean, Francisco's one of our big leaders on the team. After that game, that was a really tough game. He came over to my locker before the meeting, and he's like, I think it's a good time to have a players meeting. What do you think? And I said, yeah, I think if we're going to do it, now's the time. And he led off the meeting with some really wise words. And a lot of people spoke in that meeting. I spoke a little bit, but quite a few people spoke in that meeting. And overall, the message was just really positive, and we need to stay together, and we need to have a thing, that's just for us. And a lot came out of that. And you never know what's going to come out of it, but it was almost just like we snapped our fingers and started playing better the next day as a group. And all of a sudden we were having more fun and kind of let go of the burden of the past. And, Francisco had a really good pulse on that being the right time. So I give him a lot of credit for that.
All right, real quick here. Mendy, is he as good a manager as he was a bench coach?
Well, I mean, I only had him that 1 year in 2020 as a bench coach, so it's hard to totally understand everything that the bench coach was doing. But I do think he's done a really good job with this team. His message has been consistent. And I just got to give him a lot of credit. That's the most important thing as a manager, is just to be consistent. And he's had our backs pretty much the whole way. And you've seen the results. We are turning it around. We're right in the thick of this thing. And I think a lot of good things are in store for the Mets. So you got to give him credit for that.
It's fun, dude. National League wild card, and obviously there's some division leaders, but there are a lot of teams in the mix. So playoffs are very, very much an open race. So it's been fun to watch, dude. Good luck in the game tonight again against the Yanks. All eyes on it, especially in the New York City area. And we appreciate the time as always, Adam. Great having you on, dude.
All right, thanks, fellas.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.